After climbing aboard the Punjab Mail Express train in Mumbai, it was a further 28 hours before I finally arrived in Delhi. It was an experience to say the least. In Delhi I was greeted by yet more chaos on the roads, but fortunately I was also greeted by an old friend of mine, Mr. Prashant Nagpal, aka Betty. Prashant helps run the family business, a company which manufactures beds and exports made to the UK and other European markets. They produce some high quality goods and run a pretty slick setup, but the factory conditions weren't exactly what you'd expect to see in the UK. I also found my next mode of transport in the back of the factory warehouse. Whilst in Delhi I was also fortunate enough to get invited to an Indian wedding, so I had a good shave and donned some traditional Indian wedding gear. The lavish celebrations took place over the course of a week, and by the final wedding ceremony the whole idea of getting married must have been wearing a bit thin. However, the wedding itself was rich in tradition and took several hours. Also, the colour and decorations around the venue and food afterwards were absolutely fascinating. After recovering from a spell of the Delhi belly, I headed south to Agra and the Taj Mahal. It was an impressive monument, but not worthy of all the hype in my opinion. The Taj is fast losing its white colour due to the pollution, and as such most industry has been banned in Agra. India has many impressive monuments reflecting its rich and diverse history, but I had to question whether it was worth all the hassle and difficulty to see these places. India has a fairly extensive rail network, but I don't think many new lines have been added since the British left pre-1947, but some of the routes that I've wanted to go on, some of the places I've wanted to visit have required me to take the local buses, and this has proved to be quite a lot of fun, and especially on the motorways when they don't tend to hang around, drive at speed using the horns, and then when you add all the other complications on the Indian roads of the tuk-tuks, the cyclists, the cows, the tractors, and then when you put some of those driving in the opposite direction to what you're driving down the fast lane, this can prove quite interesting, but the drivers just seem to swerve around it. I did also see today a farmer using the central reservation as a loading ramp to load the buffalo into the back of his homemade wagon. And he was pretty much stopping most of the traffic, but you see it all, and it gets even worse at night when people aren't really using their lights properly, so when you have got traffic coming in the opposite direction you can't see it until you're very, very close. And I thought we had a few near misses tonight alone, but it seems to just be a way of life here, so just got to get used to it. I continued to head west towards the Pakistan border in search of some more adventure. Eventually I found it, in the form of a camel trek. This was undoubtedly my favourite experience in India. We spent 2 days and a night crossing the desert and some harsh farmland where water was in very short supply. It was a great insight into the lives of the desert people, and at night they cooked and sang enchanting desert songs with some improvised plastic container instrumentation. Well, it was always going to be difficult getting from India and heading further east to Vietnam, my next stop, but I have considered a number of different options. From Delhi I could go up through Nepal and then through China, but apparently the road infrastructure is fairly non-existent in this side of China, and it could take months to get from one side to the other and then down to Vietnam. The other option I considered was going through Bangladesh and then through Burma, but it turns out that Burma has all of its overland borders closed and can only be flown into, so this wasn't a viable option either. Again, I considered boat, which I could have got from India to the Andaman Islands, but then to get to the mainland from there would prove difficult because Burma wouldn't be possible, and then to get down as far as Thailand would require a lucky find of a boat going in the right direction. So therefore I'm going to have to fly yet again from Delhi to Vietnam, but there's no direct flights, so I'm going to take a stopover in Hong Kong for a few days before carrying on.